Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo. He will become. This is the first video of this thought experiment. I don't intend to make it very long. I want to jump straight to the point. Mind your language, by the way. You'll see the cues as we go along. Could be speaking in motherfucking Zolo. So it's crazy, man. This is what the thought experiment is titled. Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo. So it might sound blasphemous. It might sound like Jesus guy is the most blasphemous motherfucker on the planet. You know, you might be thinking I'm a motherfucker, but I ain't that type of motherfucker. I'm this type of motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm trying to say here is that Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo. And what this is about is a theological question. And it's inspired by one of the things that Jesus said. I'm gonna jump into that in the next video. But before I jump into that, I want to talk about who Jehovah is and what's his story, so we understand what I mean, so that you have enough context to understand exactly what I'm saying and why I'm saying what I'm saying. I think what would be what I just said, Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo. That is actually the best news of this entire existence of life. To just hear that Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo, because for the longest of times, the statement would be, Jehovah is a motherfucking hobbo. So something has happened over the past couple of decades, and is about to be revealed in this decade. They say Jehovah was, no longer is, a motherfucking hobbo. So I want to jump into it and then make you guys understand where this is coming from. And for you guys to understand what I'm saying, you would need to understand the background. So let's just go to my notes. I got this thing called the virtual whiteboard, and let's go check it out. I just already wrote some notes down. Alright, so what's the story of Jehovah? Right, this is what we're jumping into, guys. Let's just jump into that. Jehovah's story. Where does it start? It starts with the creation story, where Jehovah creates an avatar called mankind, which is the home for the spirit. Very important. So let me put it this way. Let's jump back and give you some FaceTime. So there is the spirit of God that was hovering above the waters before creation of life began. And when God said, "Let there be light." Right. So you gotta pay attention to this, guys, and let's not get too caught up in the doctrine. So my advice, if you're really gonna appreciate anything that's been said here, is fuck what you heard. You know what I mean? Fuck what you heard, meaning that I know that you've heard things, you've heard people saying things about the Bible and this, and coming up with stories about this and that. But right now, I'm going to ask you to say, fuck what you heard, and create a clean slate so that you can be able to receive what I'm saying. In fact, it's kind of weird that I actually had a dream about it where I was trying to dish up some food, and then I kept on having a dirty plate. Right. I kept on pulling out a dirty plate to go serve myself some food, and I never got to serving myself some food because my plate was dirty. And it was kind of crazy until I eventually went to the kitchen area, and it became a bit of a hoo-ha to get some food. I'm like, God damn, I need some of that food, man. What's up with you guys? I need some of the food, dog. So it's kind of interesting. You don't. I wouldn't serve you on a dirty plate. So what I'm trying to say now, clean up the plate, remove up what you heard, keep it clean so that you can receive what I'm saying. Because it's actually very useful to understand what I'm saying now, because theologically you will understand why this is something that has not been touched on very much. And for me, look, I'm not a person that's got an agenda. I'm not trying to open a church and try to, I'm trying to create awareness and get people to start behaving appropriately. appropriately meaning that the Bible was written to inspire a certain reaction. And what I've found is that people have went ahead of the Bible author to kind of pervert the intent behind the writings in the first place. So if the writings were meant to inspire people to behave a certain way, the Bible is now being used to get people to behave in the complete opposite way that it was intended. So the Bible has created a whole bunch of believers instead of people that are doers. So we created a whole bunch of believers instead of people who be beers. People who go out and do things in the name of the story, in the name of the characters in the story. And that's the challenge, and this is the tragedy about the Bible. But I don't want to go into that. Theologically, let's jump back into it. Who is Jehovah, and what is this about? So, I just jumped into it. Initially, the Spirit Jehovah creates this avatar called mankind with the intent to have his spirit dwell in that vessel. So the primary accommodation for the spirit person is the man, or the spirit of the creator is the man, and the spirit of the co-creators that were with him is mankind. And you see this also in Genesis chapter 6. So let me just jump into it. Let's go. See, we see this in Genesis chapter 6 as well. So we see Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. It says, "Let us make man in our own image." Genesis 2 describes the process in which he breathes life into the man and he becomes a living being. It's very important that I'm mentioning this now, because there's some theology that God breathing into the human being is breathing in the soul of the human, or the spirit of the human life. So the whole idea was creating a vessel and it putting breath in the lungs so that it can be a living person, so that body can function. So the act of life is the fact that the body is starting to function, the digestive system, all the systems, the brain, all the systems, and the sensory organs, you know what I mean? So that's my point I'm trying to make. And then in Genesis chapter 6, I'm going to just point it out here. Genesis chapter 6, we have the two sons of God showing up. Let me just write it here. Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. And we say what? Verse 1, right? And I'm gonna verse 2. So I'm going to read it out here. Genesis. "Now when the men started to grow in number on the surface of the ground, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of the true God began to notice that the daughters of men were beautiful. So they began to take as wives all whom they chose." So this is very important to note, that you see, this is the evidence that I'm saying that they were the true sons of God. And they took up these avatars so that they could start mating with the woman of the mankind. So this is what I'm trying to point out to you guys. So this is the context. So the idea here that I'm pointing out, that the man, the body, becomes the primary accommodation for the spirit. Primary accommodation. So if a spirit wants to stay somewhere and be somewhere, it has to take up a body. And the purpose of creating mankind was to say procreate, so that you can create more vessels, so that the spirit, can have a place to dwell in. And that's why you see in Genesis chapter 6 that, it says, when men started to fill the earth, the surface of the earth, then the two sons, the spirit, saw that, hey, there's some fly-ass babes here. Let's come down and take up a vessel, or take up a human being, and start to enjoy ourselves with these women, because they look fly as hell. So let's go do that, right? So it's not some weird thing like what people imagine, some weird spirit or ghost now, like, So the spirit has to take possession of a body, which is the primary facility for the spirit. It's the primary accommodation. So in this context, it's called a tent. Let's call it a tent. Right. That's what they've used in the Bible context. Let's call it a tent. Alright, so let's just jump into that. So this is the tent of the spirit. Man is the tent of the spirit. Right, and then the next part here of Jehovah's story is that now that it does that, there's a couple of things that happen that now mankind becomes too violent and it has to start again, and he makes a covenant with Noah to say, guys, please, rainbow covenant, don't kill. That was the rainbow covenant. God was like, please, as long as you're not violent and kill, I'm gonna ask you to account for your brother. I'm gonna ask you to account for the life that is around you, all the animals and stuff. You, Noah, this is my covenant with you, and this is the sign of my covenant, the rainbow. So from that restart, Jehovah God takes on a different approach to mankind, right? Cultivating vessels in which His Spirit can dwell. So I'm telling you a different approach. So if you're gonna come at this video with preconceived notions, you're gonna get hurt. You rather put those notions aside for a little bit and just put them aside and just hear what's going on here. And once you've got and understood what is being said, you can then contrast and compare to what you know, and then we can have a discussion. But if you're not going to do that, then it's futile, pointless. Right. So now we're in the second part now, where he reveals himself to Moses as I will become. And I'm going to read it out, actually. Exodus 3 verse 14. So you know that I'm not tripping. So the question that Moses asks, it's like, dude, you're asking me to go do this for you, man. How and what do I say to the people when I say, who sent me? Right? And he says it very clearly. So now the challenge now, and I'm going to point it out theologically as well, is that certain translations deliberately did this, and I want to talk about this just briefly. Certain translations deliberately put I am to try and conceal this idea of who God really is. And the only people that really were honest about it, right? I mean, you can even check out the Bible Project. If you look at the Bible Project just Google on YouTube, there's a channel called Bible Project, and you'll just Google Yahweh Bible Project. They even admit that this is the meaning of Yahweh, meaning I will be, He will be. So why would this guy call himself the God the first time he reveals himself to people of Israel? He says, He will be. How? And this is one I'm going to just read it out. Right, and this is 14. So, but Moses said to the true God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your forefathers has sent me to you. And they will say to me, what is his name? Right. And so God said to Moses, I will become what I choose to become. And he added, this is what you are to say to the Israelites. I will become has sent me to you. I will become has sent me to you. So the word Jehovah actually means he will become. And that's why you see some translations, Jah. And hallelujah, praise Jah. Praise the one that has become. Praise the I am. So this puts in context what Jesus said when he said, I am. He was saying, I have become. I am who Jehovah intended to become. That's what he was claiming. So what does Jehovah mean? And why just so you people understand, is that Jehovah comes from the Latin translation of the divine name as written in Hebrew called Yahweh. So Jehovah is literally just comes from the Latin translation of Yahweh. Right. So so let's not get confused. So Yahweh and Jehovah is the same thing, but Jehovah has become more commonly used because it's taken from the Latin translation. So remember, the first time it's really translated, the Bible scriptures are really translated into another language, was when it's translated into Latin. So Jehovah comes from that Latin rendition of the name. So this spirit points out very important principle that it intends to become. So who will it intend to become? Who will it choose to become? Obviously not a dog, not an ant, not a cow, not a tree. A man. That's the whole point. And remember where it started. Why did he create on the sixth day? Let us create man in our own image, so that it can be our dwelling place. The spirit can dwell and be accommodated by the flesh, by the man. So, yeah, record it. I'm gonna record it. Alright, I just got distracted there. So we've discussed it. Spirit creates mankind as a facility for the spirit to dwell. This is now this spirit reveals himself and announces his name for the first time to Moses. Says, hey man, I will become. I am. I will become who I choose to become. And the evident thing is that this spirit intends to become a son of a man. Son of a man. Become a man. Right. Very important, right? So, why this is important, you might think this is strange. And this is what I'm going to say something very important, is that why would this creator of life create man in his own image and sit on the sidelines permanently just watching his own creation, just watching over his own creation? Clearly, it's like creating a game and never getting to play it. This is the analogy I want to make. Why would you create a game and never play it? Why would you do that? And this is the point I'm trying to make. And this is why I'm going to say to the people watching this, if you got preconceived notions, put them to the side. It's like, chill out a little bit, man. Listen to what I'm saying. Go through this thought experiment. And once you get the gist of what I'm saying, then you can compare it to like, I was under the impression that this and this and this. And it's not a sin to like freaking change your mind or repent or have a different perspective on something that you already know. That's the whole point of life, and that's what the point of being a human being is. We grow every day, and this is the challenge, and this is why I'm so provocative. When I'm saying Jehovah was a motherfucking hobbo. That's why I'm being provocative. Is that I need you guys to pay attention to what the fuck I'm saying. Alright, so, and I ain't gonna do it like these fucking pastors as well, man. Jesus' name, like, and then rile up all the time when I'm talking. I ain't trying to do that shit. Just trying to communicate the idea so you guys get the fuck I'm saying. So, this is the next part. He prepares the people and atone for himself, and you can see this is in 1 Samuel is the first time this is mentioned. 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 7. So let's just read that. 1 Samuel. So what's happening in this book, Jehovah had just got his Israelites into the promised land, and now they've settled in the promised land, and now the Israelites rebel, and this is their rebellion. They decide, no, we want our own king. Now, we hear you. He will become, we hear you, Jehovah, the God that's going to become, but we need a king now that is going to lead us now, and this is what they do. So, I'm going to read from chapter 8, verse 6. But it displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. Then Samuel prayed to Jehovah, and Jehovah said to Samuel, listen to everything the people say to you, for it is not you whom they have rejected, but it's I whom they have rejected as their king. So what is the point I'm trying to make? This is the point, even like you see in the template. The king of the Jews is the throne of this Jehovah who intends to be a son of man. So Jehovah is intending to become the king of the Jews, and the guy is just like saying, nah bro, we ain't trying to fuck with you right now. We need a king that's gonna look after us now. We can't be waiting for you to show up. Like, we need a king now. Moral of the story, right? Right? So let's jump into it. The last one. Then he promises let me see, there we go. Then he promises to restore and appear as a son of a man. This is his final promise. So basically what happened with Israel, if you understand, if you've read the Bible stories, is that they settled their king. After the first king, there was Saul, there was David, there was Solomon, and then it was basically downhill after that until they eventually got captured by the Syrians and the Babylonians, and this was the end of what became the Jewish, or the kingdom of Israel. But the prophets during this exile, right, as written in the story, right, started making prophecies about how he will show up and restore his people, regather Israel, and attach the rest of the nations to himself through Israel, and become known to the rest of the nations as a son of man who is king of the Jews and is king of Israel. Right. So this is the idea. Right. So I'm gonna read out this just so you guys see what I'm talking about. The reference here, the typical, the many references, guys, Zechariah, Jeremiah, all the prophetic books, you'll find references, but I think the best one I can find is Ezekiel 37. I'm going to read it out for you real quick. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And by the way, the New Living Translation is appropriate because it's the one book that has the name of the God of the Bible. It doesn't have to be Yahweh, but the fact that we know Jehovah is that name, and you see it every time, not Lord and Lord this, because sometimes it's very important to see where it's actually mentioned. Jehovah is actually mentioned when it refers to the true God. So I'm going to read it out here. I'm going to read it out just to show you the overall intent, right? Then tell them, this is what Sovereign Lord Jehovah says. I will take the Israelites from among the nations where they have gone and I will collect them from every direction and bring them to their land. I will make them one nation in the land, and on the mountains of Israel one king will rule over them, referring to himself, right, who he will become. And they will no longer be two nations, nor will they be divided any longer into two kingdoms. And this is why I'm going to say something quite interesting. If you look at the black people, pay attention. There's Africans on the continent and Africans on another continent living in diaspora. You know what I mean? And if you pay attention, you'll see where the principles playing out. And so I'm reading from 21, and I'm on verse 23 of chapter 37 of Ezekiel, right? They will no longer defile themselves with their disgusting idols and their detestable practices, and all their transgression. I will save them from their unfaithfulness and by which they have sinned, and I will cleanse them. They will be my people, and I myself will be their God. So what does that mean? It means I myself, in person, will be their God. Right. So it makes even an inverted commas here. My servant David will be their king. Right. So a man like David will be their king, and they will have one shepherd. They will walk in my judicial decisions and carefully observe my statuses. They will dwell in the land that I gave to my servant, to Jacob, where your forefathers lived, and they will dwell on it forever. And their children and their children's children, and David my servant will be their chieftain forever. Right. So this is a person that's like David, who will sit as king over the people forever. So the children and their children's children will know that the king is David, this guy who's like David, who sits enthroned as the king of the Jews. So why do we use this illustration? And people need to understand. It's not like David who lived is going to come back or something like that. Or it's like understanding that a person like David will sit as king of the Jews. Right? And this is who Jehovah chooses to become. Right? This is the description of who Jehovah chooses to become. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it will be an eternal covenant with them. And I will establish them and make them many, and place my sanctuary among them forever. My sanctuary. So what does this mean? My sanctuary is my dwelling place. It's the place where I rest. And as I pointed out, the Spirit dwells and rests in the flesh. In the flesh. So this is why it says here in verse 27, my tent will be with them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. So my tent, my dwelling place, my physical body, the Son of Man, will be with them and forever. And this is what it goes. And they will be my people. And the nations will have to know, and all the nations will have to know that I, Jehovah, am sanctifying Israel, and my sanctuary is in their midst forever. So my dwelling, so this is referring to the vessel, the avatar of that who Jehovah, who he will become. That place that he will rest and reside and chill, and the Spirit will dwell in that spirit, in that body. In that body. That's what it's about. I'm going to go into Daniel as well. Right, that's the other reference I have. Right, let me just go into Daniel. What was it? Daniel chapter 7. Here's another image, and this is very important. So as you're listening to this, you realize that the story that you hear about Jesus doesn't do any of this what I just read. But in fact, he just promises that it's going to happen soon. And that's going to happen soon. So that's what Jesus comes to do. Say, hey guys, this is about to play out. What you heard about in the scriptures is about to play out. Let me read chapter 7, verse 13. Alright. I kept watching in the visions of the night, and look, with the clouds of the heavens, someone like a son of man was coming, and he gained access to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him up close before that one. And to him they were given rulership, honor, and the kingdom, that the peoples, the nations, and the language groups should serve him. His rulership is an everlasting rulership that will not pass away, and his kingdom will not be destroyed. Right, this is very important. I think you guys get what I'm saying. Right, this is what I'm saying. So this is where we are. So this is the Son of Man that Jesus is referring to. The Son of Man who will be king forever, and all nations and all languages will serve him. Right. So when we look into the Jesus story that's in the next video, you get to understand who he's talking about. So let me point this out very clearly. Is that the Spirit of the Creator for centuries and generations has been trying to find a way to become this particular Son of Man that will become king and ruler over his people, covenant people, and all the nations get to see him and attach and serve him as king, not only of that particular nation, but king of all creation. So this is the idea. This is the idea that is presented in the Bible, and it's very important that people get that idea. So anybody that's watching this, you've always imagined God is some guy in the sky, and then we die, we go to heaven. While you're trying to die and go to heaven, this spirit has been on a mission to try to get into the game. And like I'll say this very important statement. Who creates a game and never plays it? And you just sit and you watch other people play it. Oh, my sons can get in. Like you see in Genesis chapter 6. Oh, my sons can go in, get wives and go get some of that ass, Everybody can get in, but you, the actual custodian of the game, like just sit on the sidelines and you never want to get some for yourself. Of course. And this is where you empathize, and this is why I can say I'm a person that's like David, because David is described as a man who was after the heart of God. After the heart of God means being concerned with what is in the heart of the Spirit of God, or this Jehovah. What does this guy want? And if you look at it, not to sound strange and not to sound weird, it's not about anything else besides him becoming who he wants to become, which is the king that will reign forever and ever on earth. An immortal king that will be born into this world that will reign forever and ever in this world. That's what he wants. That's beyond anything, whether he loves you, he cares about you, this and that. He wants to establish his kingdom, and he wants to be king over that kingdom here, right here in the world, on earth. And what he wants more than anything else is to find a permanent place where his spirit can dwell, where his spirit can call home, a place where his spirit can call home. And that is a tent, a sanctuary, as called in the Bible, a body, a son of a man that he can call home. And if you look at what's described in the Bible, a man like David, and the tent of God will be in the midst of his people forever. His kingdom will reign forever and will have no end. It cannot be destroyed. This is who he intends to become. So we can make the Bible about us and what our needs and our financial obligations are on a day-to-day. We need to pull the thumb out of our assholes, man, and pay attention to what this character Jehovah of the Bible really wants. And once we start to understand that, we start to behave differently and start to think, whoa, okay, if that's the case, then what the hell? So the irony, why I'm saying this is, once you understand this, all of us, once we start to understand this, we get to understand who we are, and we realize that we actually in the same predicament as the author of the Bible, as the main character in the Bible, Jehovah. I'm not going to talk about the author yet, but I'll talk about the main character of the Bible, Jehovah. We're in the same position. Right? We're like these guys who waited centuries to finally get their hands on the joystick. I want to give you an example. If you've played FIFA and there's 2 joysticks and you're playing a tournament and there's maybe 20 guys or 15 guys and you're playing a tournament, you kind of got to wait your turn to eventually play, you know what I mean? But while you're waiting your turn, you just sit on the sidelines and you watch other people play, you know what I mean? But, imagine it's like that, where we've waited centuries to kind of get this particular life and this opportunity to finally play. And it's up to us whether we choose to want to drop the joystick or we want to keep the joystick forever and be like, yay, you can keep playing, dog. Oh, I can keep playing. I don't have to stop playing. I don't have to, you know what I mean? That's where we are. That's who we are. So once you understand who Jehovah is, you kind of understand who you are. And once you understand who you are, it's where I'm going to what I said in the beginning of this video, is that the tragedy about the Bible is it's created the opposite of what it was intended to create. It's supposed to have created a generation of people who act in a certain way to bring about a certain environment and a certain reality. Instead of that, it's created a whole bunch of passive, timid believers and hopers. Right? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to believe, because it always starts with belief. But then the act of faith is being able to act, in line with the belief and act in a way that brings about what you hope for, rather than just hope and completely put the responsibility on somebody else. And even worse, when you put the responsibility on somebody else that you don't even see, you have no responsibility. Your responsibility becomes believe and hope. So this is going to be my last comment, and I hope that you guys appreciate this. It was way longer than I thought it would be, but I appreciate it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.